Good morning, folks. This is Mr. Dan coming to you from the Landscape Design Classroom, and today we're going to talk about composting for beginners. What's our main idea here? What should I know about compost? What is compost? It's decayed organic material. Organic meaning it comes from plants, animals, and their waste products, made from lawn clippings, leaves, straw, household garbage, manure, etc. Pretty much anything that's more natural. But whenever you talk about household garbage, that would be like the remains of like food you've eaten, not like cleaning products. And then a natural process which breaks biodegradable material into particles. So some reasons for composting: provides humus or decayed organic material for the soil, recycles waste materials, improves soil texture and structure, provides plant nutrients, costs little to nothing. Moving into recycling waste materials, happens naturally in forests and pastures. Alternatives for organic waste, landfill is not preferred. Some large-scale city compost sites and compost site on your own property. We actually have compost bins out behind our shop here that we'll be working with to create some new compost out back. So improving soil with compost adds texture and improves soil structure, encourages microorganism growth, improves water holding capacity, especially for sandy soils, and improves aeration and drainage in clay soils. Now, providing nutrients compost, better garden crop growth in soils containing humus, nutrients for plants and microorganisms, and a supply of nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. So what kind of ingredients do we have in compost? The green stuff, which is high in nitrogen, protein rich, and provides moisture. And then we have the brown, which is higher in carbon, energy rich, and absorbs moisture and adds soil structure. So there's a big difference here between your green, which is kind of like grass clippings and falling leaves. And you're definitely going to get more acidity coming out of your out of your leaves that come down. So just be aware and can make sure you're always doing soil tests once you start getting some good breakdown. So balancing seed or carbon to nitrogen ratio. So by combining different organic waste. So examples would be 2 parts grass clipping, 1 part leaves, and that's just because of how acidic leaves can be. So examples of green and brown. Green for nitrogen would be grass clippings, fruit and vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, eggshells, and animal manure. And brown for carbon, the leaves, non-woody plant trimmings, cardboard tubes, newspaper or shredded paper, paper egg cartons, and sawdust. So leaving lawn clippings, excellent and easy to get source of organic material. A way to improve garden plots. Preferred leaves, most deciduous trees. Acidic sources to avoid, oak leaves and pine needles. So just a note here on pine needles. Pine needles are extremely acidic. So as you can see, like all the ground typically underneath those, especially established trees, are usually scorched with what I mean is not having any sort of green underneath, no grass or any sort of plants, because acidity dropping from, or the acidity coming from those needles that drop are actually killing off the ground there. So once you take a tree out like this, you want to make sure you replace all the soil around it as well, typically about 6 feet deep, especially if it is a tree that was there for a very long time. So peat, or moving on to peat, partly decompressed plant material, which slowly accumulates in lake bottoms or low depression. This is a great material for putting new plants in as well. Available in bales from garden stores. It's expensive, but a quick way to improve soil in lawns and flower beds. Like I said, it's great for putting new plants in as well, because it makes that soil more airy and can have better flow through capacity. Works about 4 to 6 inches into the soil. Do not use peat for if you're taking out like a large pine tree. You do not want 6 feet of peat moss in there, because that tree will die, because it won't be able to even hold that type of structure. So animal manure, add to the compost pile or directly into soil. Partially rotted manure is preferable. You want that stuff to be you want it to be fresh, but you want it to be just a little bit beyond fresh, because once it starts breaking down, it allows you to add more nutrients into that soil a lot more quickly. Plant nutrients are low compared to garden fertilizers, and it provides some plant nutrients as well as organic matter. Sawdust, readily available in some areas, added to the compost pile or directly into soil. The disadvantages though here are it can be slightly acidic depending on the type of sawdust you're using, and ties up more nitrogen than other organic materials. Some materials to avoid, and I'll let you go through these on your own. Dog feces and cat feces, because they typically have parasites and pathogens. Meat, fish, bones, fat, grease, different odors that may attract different types of insects or rodents. Black walnut leaves, they're harmful to other plants. And weeds gone to seed or with invasive roots may spread weeds. We actually had a problem with that back in our compost bins last year with Canadian thistle that kind of blew in from either the wind or if a bird carried a seed in. So just if there's like a material that you're not really familiar with, make sure you do your research before you're adding that in there. So some other materials to avoid. Weeds gone to seed with invasive roots, going to spread weeds. Wood ash, charcoal ash, yard trimmings treated with pesticides. Pesticides is kind of tough because a lot of people put that on their yard, but if you don't do any sort of like treatments on your yard, then you're totally good to go. Like we don't use anything on campus here on our yard or on our grass, so this is a perfect opportunity for composting. Now, how to compost: collect various organic materials. Large piles decay to much smaller amounts. Decomposition happens over time, and the final product will be dark brown, crumbly, and earthy smelling. So some composting structures, there's many options depending on time, money, and space. Some examples would be a partly below ground pit, wooden or wire frame or fencing, pallets or concrete block walls with 3 compartments, large drums or garbage cans, and rotating devices. So here's just some more compost structures. A rotating compost drum up here, wooden compost structure, and then we also have some heavy wire fencing that is converted for using for making compost. So building compost pile, you want to start with 6 to 12 inches of organic material, add 1 inch of soil, keep the surface level or slightly dished, keep the pile moist but not wet. Speed decomposition by chopping coarse materials and adding fertilizer, and then mix occasionally to provide oxygen and speed the process. So one of the things we do here is we have a couple spinners in the back that we use for chopping up that soil and all that organic material to kind of bring it in together, and it helps with the breakdown of the materials to create a nice compost pile. So our bottom line here, composting is a good way to recycle organic waste, improve soil texture, provide some plant nutrients. So that's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, give me a call down here in the landscape design classroom. But I appreciate your time, folks. Have a great day.